What is up, guys? So today we're going to be checking out some great flagships that you can pick up that came out in 2019 that I think are still really great buys. So first is the OnePlus 7 Pro. If you watch the channel, you know this is my daily driver still. I still think this is one of the best phones that you can pick up. So this phone is awesome for a couple of reasons. Hardware wise, it's got great hardware. It's a glass and metal phone. It feels really great in the hand. You also have really the main selling point on this phone is the beautiful 6.67-inch Fluid AMOLED display. It's a 90 hertz display with HDR10. It's a 1440p display, so super sharp resolution and a really nice high PPI at 516. So overall, just a beautiful display. It does have a slight curve to it, but honestly, it really doesn't annoy me because I use a case on mine anyway. But the display is no punch, no notch hole. Just a beautiful display. And again, 90 hertz makes this experience very, very smooth. So I just love the really immersive experience when it comes to the display. So Oxygen OS is on here, and we're supposed to be getting the Android 11 update very soon, so I've been looking out for that. But it's a very smooth operating system, has a decent amount of customization, and pretty clean as well. So you do have the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. Overall, this is still a very powerful phone. There's not a game in the Play Store that I haven't been able to play. Call of Duty, Fortnite, PUBG. This is still pretty much a flagship level chipset. So unfortunately, this phone does not have any type of expandable storage, and the base model is 128 gigs of storage and 6 gigs of RAM. You also have a really nice sounding stereo speaker on here as well. It has pretty good bass quality. NFC is on board. There's no headphone jack, unfortunately. You also have a very fast in-display fingerprint sensor as well on here, and you do have the option for face unlock with the pop-up camera. So speaking of the cameras, you have a triple camera setup. It's a 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots 4K video along with the pop-up 16 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p. As you can see from the photos, it takes very good photos. Since the phone came out, OnePlus has done a really good job pushing software updates to the cameras to be able to give you the best photos still. It takes very vibrant, very detailed photos. I've never had an issue taking photos with this camera in pretty good lighting. As you can see from the shots, you get very good shots. So the 7 Pro has respectable battery life. You get around 8 hours of screen on time, which I think is very good with a 4000 milliamp battery. Also with very fast charging at 30 watts. So this thing charges super fast as well. So you can see this is still one of my favorite phones of all time, really. Next is the Samsung Galaxy S10e. I think this phone has gotten, forgotten about. This is a very, very good phone, especially for somebody who's looking for something a little bit more compact. So the phone comes in at around $300 to $400 depending on where you get it. I'll try to put the cheapest links down below for you guys, but it's still pretty much a little flagship phone pretty much. So you have a glass and metal design. It's IP68 dust and water resistant, and again, very compact. It feels really good in the hand. It has a 5.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display at HDR10 plus, 1080p 438 for the PPI with a little punch hole on the right hand side. It's a really nice looking display. There's no 90 hertz or anything like that, but still it's a very nice looking display. So you do get Android 11 on here. Samsung has pushed that update out for this phone, which is really nice. And the version that I have is the Snapdragon model, Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640. Again, just like the 7 Pro, this is a phone that can easily play the latest games still, no problem. I actually have a full gaming test if anyone wants to check that out. This phone also has micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 6 gigs of RAM on here. You also have the headphone jack, which is awesome, and a set of really nice and loud sounding stereo speakers as well, tuned by AKG. So they sound really awesome, very crisp and clear. This phone also has NFC on board, and one of my favorite things about this phone is it has the physical fingerprint scanner, but it's built into the power button on the side. I think that's one of the best places to put it. It's just very fast way of getting into your phone. You also have the option for face unlock, of course, and this phone has really good cameras still, a 12 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video with a 10 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K. I was never disappointed with the cameras on here. It's pretty much your classic Samsung image processing with very punchy colors, very good detail. The ultra wide took great photos. The selfie camera video was really nice on here. Overall, at this price point now, these are still really great cameras to me. Battery life on the S10e is just okay. It's not anything special. You have a 3100 milliamp battery, 15-watt fast charging, which I think was too slow even for when it came out. You also have reverse wireless charging on here and wireless charging as well. So the battery life gets around 6 hours, 7 hours of screen on time, depending on how you use it, which is fine. But this was a phone that you definitely, you can get through the day, but you're definitely going to have to charge it. It's not like a 2-day phone or anything like that. But overall, it's still a great device. Next is the LG V50. You can find this phone for around 300 bucks. This is still a really great device. And it's got a very premium design on here. It's an aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant. I recommend probably getting the Verizon version if you want the 5G, because the Sprint merger kind of messed up the 5G. But if you just don't have 5G like I do in my area, then it's not a huge deal. On this phone, you also have a beautiful POLED display. It's HDR10 at 6.4 inches. It's a 1440p display, 538 for the PPI. Overall, it's a very beautiful looking display color wise, very deep blacks. It comes with Android 10, and you should get the Android 11 update this year along with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. Again, this is a very powerful phone still when it comes to gaming and stuff like that. I've never had an issue with LG's UI or anything, so it's still a very fast phone to me. So you have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. One of the cool things about the V50 is you actually have the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, but it comes with the quad DAC as well. So if you have a really good pair of headphones, you can get some very high quality audio. The V50 also has NFC as well as a physical fingerprint scanner on the back. And just to talk about the cameras on the V50, these are some really excellent cameras, as you can see from the photos. You have a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also get 4K video with a dual camera setup up front, which is pretty unique. So you have an 8 megapixel, regular selfie camera. Then you have a wide angle lens. So if you take group selfies, you can hit that button and get everybody in the shot, which I think is really, really cool. The V50 also has a 4000 milliamp battery with 18-watt fast charging along with wireless charging. Battery life on the V50 is actually pretty good. You can squeeze around 8 hours of screen on time with this phone, and again, that varies whether you're going to be on 5G or not. And also remember, there is a V50s version of this phone that supports a dual screen case that you can pick up if you want to do like some true heavy multitasking. So overall, this is still a great phone to pick up. Next is the iPhone 11. So this phone is trending at around 600 to 650 right now, and this is still a great iPhone to pick up if you're into Apple devices. I really enjoyed this phone. So it's got a really nice body on it. It's got an aluminum frame, glass back. It has a really nice, feel to it. You also have IP68 dust and water resistant on this phone as well. It has a 6.1 inch 720p plus liquid IPS Retina display, 326 for the PPI. That was kind of one of my gripes with this phone, is that it didn't have a full 1080p display. The display is fine to the naked eye. Just when you get close up, you can kind of notice that it's 720p a little bit. But overall, I think most people, they didn't really care. So the display is fine for what it is. Now, the cool thing about this phone is that it's still blazing fast. It has the Apple A13 chip, of course, with the latest version of iOS. This phone is going to get updates for years and years to come. It's a very powerful phone. So whether you're gaming, multitasking, doing whatever, this phone is super smooth. So of course, there's no SD card support with iPhones. You get 64 gigs of internal storage, which I think is a little low, and you also get 4 gigs of RAM, but you do have Apple's cloud service that you can store stuff in. This phone actually has some really nice sounding stereo speakers as well, very loud, very nice bass quality as well. Of course, there's no headphone jack on this guy. NFC is on board with your Apple Pay, and Face ID is on here. It's very fast as well. So this phone has still really good cameras. So, and also I still think iPhones take some of the best video in any smartphones as well. So you have a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel ultra wide 4K video, and a 12 megapixel selfie camera that also shoots in 4K as well. So if you wanted to like start a YouTube channel or you just vlog a lot, this is a really great, phone to start off with. It takes great photos as well, as you can see, with detail, dynamic range. The ultra wide takes really nice photos. I was always impressed with the iPhone's cameras on here, especially the front facing camera is very good as well. And again, video is really solid on this phone too. The iPhone kind of has okay battery life. It's not anything too crazy, honestly. It's a 3,110 milliamp battery, 18-watt fast charging. Wireless charging is on board with this phone. I was able to squeeze around 6 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, which is kind of a day's battery life. And again, it varies on how hard you are on your phone, but battery life is just okay on here. But I think for the price, and this still has a top-notch camera, great hardware. To me, the display is just okay, but everything else is pretty solid on the iPhone 11. Alright guys, next is going to be the Samsung Galaxy S10. Now you can find this actually well under 300 bucks, around 240 to 260 bucks, and I will have all those links down below again. And you can also go with the Plus version of this phone. They're very similar besides, screen size and battery size here. But this phone has an awesome design. It's a glass back and aluminum frame on here. It's IP68 dust and water resistant as well. Very just excellent feeling phone, guys. I mean, it's one of my favorite phones next to the LG G7. And you do have a dynamic AMOLED display on here. It's HDR10 at 6.1 inches, and it actually has a 1440p display, 550 for the PPI. It does have a slight curve with a punch hole on the right hand side, and the display is absolutely beautiful. Watching videos on here, playing games on here, everything is just super colorful, very bright display. The punch hole is nice, and overall I just really like the display on here. It's extremely sharp. So this phone is running the latest version of Android 11 with the One UI skin on top. This is the Snapdragon 855 version with the Adreno 640. Overall performance is very fast on this device. It really just blows through anything, applications, multitasking, everything, even gaming on here you can do pretty much at high settings, which I think is awesome. You also have micro SD support, 128 gigs on the base storage, and 8 gigs of RAM, as well as a stereo speaker setup on here, which sounds excellent. Very crispy, very loud speakers on here. Great haptic feedback with a 3.5mm headphone jack as well. This phone does have a ton of little perks and stuff like NFC. You also have your fingerprint scanner under the display, which works great. You can use Face Unlock, Samsung desktop support, secure folders. The whole Samsung experience is on this device here. So this device does have some pretty good cameras too. A triple camera setup at 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also have 4K video as well, and you also have a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K as well too. So overall image quality is very good on here. Is what you would expect from an older flagship phone. It definitely outperforms most budget phones in this price range, and even some mid-range phones in my opinion, depending on which one we're talking about. But overall image quality, as you can see, is very good. Good detail, good dynamic range. Overall, just a really good camera setup. So this phone does have a 3,400 milliamp battery, which is a little on the small side. 15-watt charging, wireless charging, along with reverse wireless charging as well. So you can actually charge another device with the S10. But for battery life, it's just going to be okay. You're looking at around like 6 hours and 30 minutes. Somewhere around that range, which is fine. That is technically a full day's use. So overall, the S10 is an excellent device.